Welcome to another episode of Hacks and Jacks. I'm your host, Brett Ford, here as always with senior analyst Scott Chu. We're talking hitters on Pitcher List here on Hacks and Jacks. Scott, looking forward to Memorial Day weekend coming up.
Yeah, I've never felt more like a senior analyst than this last week where I have sciatic nerve pain. That gets you feeling senior real quick when like the way you're standing shoots pain into your thigh and knee. Yeah, senior analyst right now. I am a senior analyst.
You have any any Memorial Day plans, or are you just gonna be sitting on the couch?
Make my back and leg not feel like they're on fire. That's my goal.
Yeah, ice and elevation. I don't know. I haven't dealt with that yet. I'm sure it's coming for me.
We got too many kids to do any of those things. You and I, we know we got too many kids. So you just hope. You take ibuprofen 800s and you hope.
Yeah, we hear that. We are excited for Memorial Day. We're traveling with the three young kids, so it should be fun. 4-hour drive down to my folks outside of Baltimore, so should be a good time. Just pray that the tablet chargers work and go from there.
A good time. That's an interesting description. Let me know how that goes. Good time. It'll be a time. It will be a time.
Well, speaking of Memorial Day, you aren't supposed to check your fantasy baseball standings until Memorial Day. But now that we're here, it's time to see where your fantasy team really stands. If you're stuck in the middle of the pack or trying to climb out of an early hole, the moment to make your move is now. From now through Monday, May 25th, you can get your 2 free months of PL Pro with an annual subscription when you use the code MEMORIAL25. That's MEMORIAL 25 at checkout. PL Pro is going to give you access to our premium tools, Discord community, and a first look at the amazing new PL Pro dashboard getting ready to release. If you're serious about wanting to make a real push up the standings, now's the time. Head to pitcherlist.com and be a part of our amazing community by using the code MEMORIAL25 to get 2 free months of PL Pro yearly. A lot of guys headed to the IL this week. We'll start with the catchers. Drake Baldwin, Cal Raleigh, Ryan Jeffers, Francisco Alvarez, and Kyle Teal all down and out this week. That really thins out the player pool at that position. Where do we look for help?
Well, there's not that many places. So in a 10-team league, there's probably still somebody good out there, like a Dylan Dingler that no one ever bothered to add, or an Adley Rutschman that someone cut early and nobody ever picked back up. But if you're in a slightly deeper league than that, it gets a little bit messier. And so I'm going to give you some names that I want you to actually consider as someone who might be a plus in standard category leagues. But then we're going to talk a little bit about like, when do you not bother? When do you leave it blank? So let me give you the easy ones. Gabriel Moreno, Keibert Ruiz, Tyler Stevenson, Carter Jensen, Carson Kelly. If those names are out there, go for it. Especially in a points league, you want to prioritize Moreno and Ruiz, and then following that, Kelly. You care a little less about Stevenson or Jensen. In a category league, it kind of depends on the categories. Moreno and Ruiz are ratio guys. Stevenson has a little bit more pop. Carter Jensen has a lot more pop, but really bad ratios. And Carson Kelly just kind of gets hot for a short time, but plays less than the other 4 guys. So you can kind of, just see what's in your league. Any of those 4 guys, kind of regardless of format, you probably want them instead of the extra roster spot. Now, in a points league, it's actually pretty easy to just switch to a streamer instead of a catcher in most points leagues. So if you can't get someone that's going to play close to every day, so like even Carson Kelly in a points league, you have to start taking him off the list because he doesn't play enough, right? You need I need the most points per roster spot. And so then you might, if you can't get like a Gabriel Moreno or a Keibert Ruiz in a points league, you might think like, yeah, you know what? I'll just go without, if my league allows that, I'll just go without a catcher for a little bit and wait for my guy to come back, depending on who it is, right? Some of them will be back sooner, like Drake Baldwin's going to be back pretty soon. Cal Raleigh shouldn't be out that long. Other guys might be gone longer. So you're going to have to just, kind of roll with it until something else good comes up, and we'll keep talking about it as we go. But yeah, if your options are worse than that, like if you're thinking of like, well, the top catcher on my roster in my waiver in a single catcher league is Mickey Gasper, then just don't. Just don't. Use that spot to stream anything else, anything that's going to get you more value. Because remember, these other catchers, they play like 3 times a week, right? So like 3 games that may very well be below average. Like I might get that many out of like a bench infielder or a bench outfielder or a streamer. Like I get more value from that spot than the catcher. So just kind of make that determination week to week. Like, do I need to stream an extra reliever? Right? I might get more value out of that than just the catcher. Right? Especially if you know where you are in your standings, you know where, in a head-to-head league, like what's your opponent at, right? If you kind of have one fewer reliever than them or one or 2 fewer starts this week slated against them, that extra starter, that extra reliever is going to be more valuable than the couple of games of catcher you'll get that are kind of hit and miss, right? So you don't necessarily have to have a catcher. Now, in a league where you do have to have a catcher, or where you can get, especially like a Ruiz or a Moreno or even a Stevenson in a like 12-team category leagues, then there's probably enough value there to be like, all right, this guy's going to play 4, 5, 6 times this week. I need the hitting stats made up for losing a guy like Baldwin, losing a guy like the recently hot Jeffers, Cal Rayleigh, who hasn't given me any of that stuff. So I definitely still need it. Then go ahead. But if you can't get one of those guys in a single catcher league, you start strongly considering just not having a catcher.
One of the guys that might be forgotten in some formats, especially, points leagues, Ivan Herrera. He started the year DH eligible or utility eligible only. He has started 17 games at catcher, so he ought to be catcher eligible in most leagues. He's still 30% available on ESPN fantasy leagues. I wrote about him in the under rostered players for points leagues column this past week because he was surprisingly under rostered on that platform. So check your wire, see if Ivan Herrera is available. He's been outstanding.
Ivan Herrera,
match him up.
Yeah, Ivan Herrera, he's going to get those. If you're in a league that requires 20 starts at catcher, he's about a week away, right? He starts at catcher 2 to 3 times a week. He's about a week away. He actually did it. He's done it last Thursday, Sunday, and Wednesday. He started the catcher. He's hitting well. Like he's a decent DH, right? And so, he's hitting 260. He got off to a very slow start. He's already hitting 263 now in an OBP league. I imagine he's got to be rostered because his OBP is 391. But yeah, if he's somehow out there, there's no league where there's no league that allows NL players that Ivan Herrera should be on the wire, right? An 8-team league, Ivan Herrera is a top 8 catcher, right? So he should be there. And if you're in that league and it's 20 games so you get the eligibility, fine. Go at him now because in a week or so, he'll be a catcher and you should have him. So Ivan Herrera, he's under rostered until it's 100%, right? He's a legitimately good hitter regardless of position.
We'll move on to the outfield position where we've got a handful of fantasy relevant guys going to the IL this week. Colorado outfielder Jordan Beck, San Francisco outfielder Elliot Ramos. I mean, if you're looking for outfield relief, Scott, I mean, these 3 guys, are you keeping any of them in your IL slot? Are you just kind of moving on now that they're hurt? What do you think?
So with Ramos and Beck, if you've only got 2 or 3 IL spots, just let them go. All right. Unless you have if you haven't, you should use every open IL spot that you have, right? First and foremost, if you have open IL spots, just use them because it just lets you not cut a guy, right? It's just a free place to keep a guy. So just move him down there. Now, if your IL is full, right? There's a pretty good chance that, the only one you'd probably already cut Jordan Beck weeks ago. Elliot Ramos has been up and down. He got off to a very slow start. Then he had a surge and then he was down again. Then he was up again. Then you might say okay, should I keep him? Look, Elliot Ramos is a guy he's a streaky power outfielder. He gets to bat in a pretty good spot on a Giants lineup that's severely underperformed. If you've got the open spot, keep him. But if your IL is full, it's probably with guys better than this. So it's okay if you let Ramos go. He's a back-end outfielder, especially in a 3 outfield league. It's just really hard to justify Ramos if your IL's already full. Go ahead, let him go. Just stream the spot, right? There's plenty of streamers out there. We'll talk about some of the bigger names, but frankly, any old outfielder is probably fine, right? Any old guy, Jake Bauers is fine, right? He didn't even play every day. And I'd be fine just being like, yeah, go ahead, stream Jake Bauers instead of keeping Elliot Ramos in a bench spot, right? If Elliot Ramos would be in a bench spot for you, then he's on the wire. That's fine. Again, you NFBC, like if you're in the NFBC or something like that, and it's hard to let guys go who have full playing time, then like that's a different, this has actually come up quite a bit. And it came up in the Reddit AMA, I think 2-3 weeks ago, where someone kept saying like, oh, well, shallow leagues are easier than deep leagues, right? They're easier. Of course they're easier. How could you possibly think that they're harder? And that's because in shallow leagues, you have to make tough decisions. In a deep league, you don't make a ton of drop decisions, right? Except on the very fringes of your roster. Like nobody in a deep league is wondering what to do with like fringe guys who are off to slow starts, right? Like the moment a guy gets cold in a shallow league, you're in a conundrum because everybody's got good players, right? Shallow leagues are hard. And you can't just grab a guy and say, well, you wait it out because there's nothing else on the wire, right? In a shallow league, you're wondering what to do with Matt Chapman. In a 15-team NFBC style league, you're complaining about Matt Chapman, right? Because you have no choice. What choice do you have, right? There's nothing out there, right? Even the guy that you probably would have picked up like a Brady House, he gets sent down for no good reason, right? You have nothing you can do. So in a deep league, I'm not saying it's easier or harder, but in a deep league, you're not really making decisions about guys that you drafted in the first 15 rounds yet because there's nothing out there to replace them with. Whereas in a shallow league, you're already to the point where it's like, yeah, I drafted this guy in like the 8th or 9th round and I'm running out of time. I got to move on. Well, I think I have to move on. That's a hard decision to make. So that's something happening in shallow leagues. Now, Ramos shouldn't be a hard decision for you. At this point, you should let him go. A harder decision is a guy like Ryan O'Hearn, who's a low upside player overall, who's had a good year so far this year. But he's lower upside. So hopefully you have an IL spot. You can hold on to Ryan O'Hearn. He's getting everyday playing time for the Pirates. He'll put up decent ratios, especially in like in an OBP league. And just because the home run total is a little bit capped, in part because of his general power, in part because PNC Park is very big. But that's a tougher decision. Whereas again, in a deep league, you just hold, right? Because what else are you going to do? There's nothing on the wire better than that. So this is where that deep versus shallow league distinction really comes out. It's some of these fringy guys going to the IL. I'm holding Ryan O'Hearn if I can. Elliot Ramos, I'm not really trying that hard. It's only if I have a free spot. And Jordan Beck was already gone. He was already gone.
We move to the infield now. A couple of bigger names headed to the IL this week. You have Houston sending Jose Altuve to the injured list, Corey Seager from Texas, and then Trevor Story from Boston. 3 guys that it took, pretty heavy draft capital to have on your team, but at least one of them might be on the cut block here.
Yeah. So with Altuve and Seager, I'm probably holding on. The other options aren't great. The upside's pretty good. Like Seager kind of got off to a decent start and he's been really cold the last couple of weeks, but there's a ton of talent there. He's one of the best pure hitters in the league still, even at, getting to start to be at an advanced age, right? It's weird to say because he's like just turned 32, but in pro ball, that's pretty old. Altuve's even older than that.
Are we allowed to call Corey Seager at an advanced age? Like
I'm an advanced age. Well, I'm a senior analyst now. I got sciatic nerve pain. Okay. If I'm senior, those guys are getting up there. Okay. So Corey Seager, Jose Altuve, I think you just hold, right? Shortstop is somewhat deep, but Corey Seager has just a ton of upside. When he's healthy, he can just go on a tear. I think you got to keep him. And Jose Altuve, second base sucks. So you just got to hold, right? Because like, there's not a ton of options at second base. Like go ahead, put him on the IL and we'll go stream Angel Martinez or something like that. Trevor Story's the tough one, right? Trevor Story's just been bad all year. He had a really, really great season last year, but like it was always like a number one. We don't even know if Story's going to have surgery yet. He's got a sports hernia. He could be out for quite an extended amount of time. If you got the free IL spot, go ahead. But like the plate discipline for Story's always been bad. Injuries are just like such a huge part of his history, right? Like the amount of games he's missed since the start of 23 is ridiculous. He played 43 games in 2023. He played 26 games in 2024, plays a full season out of nowhere in 2025. He's got 41 games right now. That's if he plays 2 more games, it'll be tied for like the second most since 2022, right? Like that's ugly. So in a league where I've only got 2 or 3 IL spots, I don't hate letting Trevor Story go, right? Again, not for nothing, right? He might sit on my bench for a little bit, but if there are players out there, I need, if I need like a shortstop because I've been, or, a second baseman or something like that. Like if I'm looking for a middle infielder and I'm just looking at, hey, who's at the top of the list the last 2 weeks, right? Like I am no big fan of Zach Eloff. I think he's a fine streamer until you find something else. I'm slightly more into like Angel Martinez. So those two guys, Brian Rocchio, I don't think he can really hit either, but Cleveland is hot. So like maybe you can roll with that. Matt McLean is doing some things. That's a streamer. Those are guys I'm still like, even though I don't love them, there's still something I'm willing to consider in place of just like keeping Trevor Story on my bench where he already was to begin with because he wasn't hitting. Right? If someone cut Willie Adames, I'm more into that. If Ezekiel Duran's out there, you can cover some positions until I find something better. Matt McLean is fine for now while he's hot. Brian Rocchio's fine while he's hot. Someone already probably picked up Travis Bazzana, but you can look at that. Angel Martinez. All those guys are fine. Like I'll do that. If someone had let Luis Ariz go ages ago and he's still floating out there, go for it. Even Brett Batty, right? He's playing regularly. He's got some home runs. Fine. I'm fine with all those names instead of letting Trevor Story be on my bench, right? If you have the open IL spot, you always use it. But if he would be on your bench, let Trevor Story go. Yes, there's big upside there, but there's so much that has to go right to get to it that it's hard to just keep rostering that especially in a shallow league when you just can't have dead bench spots. In an NFBC league, you can have a dead bench spot because your last spot's pretty much always dead anyway. It's some dude you have for coverage or, hey, let's see what happens. But in a shallow league, you only got 5 bench spots and it's a 12-team league. You can't have a dead spot. So if Trevor Story's that dead spot, you let him go. I'd let Altuve or Seager be a dead spot for a short time. Right? I'd wait because I'm not just going to let them go for free and let someone else scoop them who has an open IL spot and then use them against me later. But I'm fine if that happens with Trevor Story.
So if you're sitting on Trevor Story, he's on the IL, he's on your bench. Are you cutting him for Seattle prospect shortstop Colt Emerson, who just got called up this week?
Sure. Especially with JP Crawford potentially being injured, that just even solidifies more playing time for Emerson. Look, a lot of the news on Emerson lately has been like kind of cold, right? Like everyone's saying like, oh, I don't think there's a star here, blah, blah, blah. Right now, all that matters, he's going to get playing time. The strikeouts were pretty ugly. He started this year getting hurt. When he does hit the ball, he hits the ball hard. At least he did in the minors, right? He had, some decent hard hit rates. He's worth, if nothing else, he's kind of worth a stream. Yeah, it's a slow start, but like, we'll see what happens. He's got a good hit tool. It's just, injuries have been a little bit of an issue this year. And one day I think he's going to be a plus guy. Like he's not to the level of like McGonigal or even Weatherholt, maybe, at least not for this season, but he's got, I think there's definitely a plus hit tool here and enough power to make that worth something. Hit 16 home runs last year in the minors across really all 3 levels, most of them in single A. He moved up through these levels really fast, right? He doesn't even get to the high minors till last year. He's got a very limited minor league track record, but there's a lot of talent here. This is a consensus top 15 prospect. I'd rather take a shot on that than seeing how long Trevor Story is out. And then if he comes back, can he hit at all? Because he hadn't this year. I'd rather take that gamble.
Well, that segues us nicely into our news. We talked about Emerson getting called up. Another prospect that got called up, there's 2 of them actually. Probably not fantasy relevant, but want to at least get your take on both of them. Nick Morabito for the New York Mets, and then just Nixon Garcia for Pittsburgh. Are we at all interested in either of them?
No, there's guys on those rosters I'm interested in, but like Morabito, he didn't play against a righty today. Looks like he's going to be the short side of a platoon. He was hitting okay in the minors. He actually just like average. He's got speed. Morabito is going to be talked about. I think some of the podcasts that talk about very deep leagues because he could steal some bases, right? Like maybe not. He already had 14 steals in the minors so far this season. So, when he's up, when he's in the lineup, he could steal a base like once a week. If he played every day, I think he'd steal like a base a week, right? Maybe 2 sometimes in the right matchup. So like, that's what he can do. He can take some walks as well, probably like, at least above average in terms of walks, but like it's walks and speed. And in a 12-team league, there's just other guys with better track records that have that same skill set, right? Like why Nick Morabito when you could have Justin Crawford, right? Which is the same skill set, but a dude that's got but one of those dudes has a full-time job and the other doesn't, right? So Morabito's not probably relevant in most 12-team leagues. I think the name that's kind of Joe Nixon Garcia, again, he's got power, but he strikes out too much. And I'm not sure he's going to play every day. And even if he does, it's for a short time. He's more of a deep league kind of play. And even then, I'm not sure. His nickname's a lot cooler than his fantasy outlook, right? The password. I think the name that's a call up that was someone we were looking at coming into the season, and then everything just kind of fell apart. That was Dylan Cruz. He's hit the ball well in the last, 3 or 4 weeks in the minor leagues. I'm not sure how much the Nats are going to let him play. They sent down a dude that was like hitting the ball pretty hard. Like they sent down the dude that was hitting third for them in Brady House for no particular reason that I can see, except to, I guess, give Jose Tena more time at third base. It makes no sense to me. I guess Curtis Mead has been better. So like if Curtis Mead gets more playing time, then like cool, I guess. But so Dylan Cruz gets the call back up. He's played against a righty and a lefty. So it looks like they're going to let him play in the outfield a bit. He got, we're recording this on Wednesday night. He got a hit today. So that's kind of neat, I guess. But it's hard to be too excited about Dylan Cruz because this team just like, they really gave up on him. We haven't seen a ton in the major leagues yet. In a 12-team league, he's more like a flyer because I just sent 2 guys to the IL and just need to come up with names to add in. But otherwise, it's like if I've already got outfielders, like guys I'm starting, I've already got, especially if I already have a bench outfielder who plays every day, who I know what to expect from, I'm not that interested in Dylan Cruz. Again, he does have some pop. He's got a bit more speed than pop. Like we kind of hoped this could be a guy that goes like 15-25 if he were to break out, which is like cool. But at this stage, my expectations would be like, okay, let's say he plays the rest of the season. Maybe he goes like, he hits like double-digit home runs, gets double-digit steals with bad ratios, which is something. It's not nothing, but it's not something I'm like throwing a bunch of fab dollars at in a 12-team league. Because there's just a lot of guys that can do this on the wire in a 12-team league.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what the Nats are doing. It's not like they need to be a tanking team. They're 25-25. They're tied for second.
Their offense is good out of nowhere for no reason, other than like CJ Abrams and James Wood.
Right, like CJ Abrams and James Wood are just putting the teams on their back. Dalen Lyle too, but like
just now,
it's
like
not like this is a team that should be tanking.
No, it makes no sense.
I don't.
And like, why Dylan Cruz when you could add Jakob Marsee, who got cut in other places in his hitting, right? Like,
fair.
Jakob Marsee has more major league success than Dylan Cruz has in less time, right? Like, if that's what you're after, if you need speed, like Cedric Mullins is hitting right now, I'd probably rather have Cedric Mullins than Dylan Cruz, right? Like, that's not saying a ton, but at least like I've seen Cedric Mullins be good in the minor leagues somewhat recently, right? Like last season's line of like 17 home runs, 22 stolen bases, but a 216 average. Like that's Dylan Cruz, right? Like it's not that exciting.
Well, we move on to a couple of names that are a bit more exciting. Making his season debut for Baltimore is second baseman Jackson Holliday. And then back for the Braves is Ronald Acuna. He returns from his injury over the weekend, or rather in Miami earlier this week. Obviously, both guys are pretty much set and forget in your starting lineup.
That's what they want you to think. Acuna is, obviously, right? Like, you're just glad that there were no complications. He's back. Now let's see if he hits for any power, right? Like, that's just kind of how it works with him. He's slugging under 400 so far in the season. There's like a little bit of concern. Like, this version of him looks a lot like the dude we saw in 2024 for almost 50 games, which isn't good, right? Like, that's bad because that's definitely not the dude. that we saw for like even last year, like the guy, at least that dude hit, right? We haven't really seen the power from Acuna much at all this season in terms of like home run power. The average exit velocity is, fine, but it just makes you wonder like, well then what's wrong? Why? Right? Like the exit, well, I shouldn't say it's fine. It's 89.2 miles per hour. I think it'll kind of creep back up, but the barrel rate is good. The max EV is, a little low, but it'll come in line, right? The hard hit rate's a little low, but not like that alarming. The expected stats are way better than the actual ones. Like his expected slugging is like 100 points above his normal slugging or his actual slugging. So like, I'm sure Acuna is fine. I rank him lower than everyone else because of injury risk, not so much because of performance risk. Jackson Holliday is the one I'm really concerned about. So he was a guy I really liked coming into the season. I talked about him a lot. Helmet bone injuries are not a big deal unless you have a setback. When you see setbacks, that's when you see guys with these like really long, prolonged sort of issues in trying to get back their power and all that stuff. All of those like urban legends about lost power and everything, they come from guys who had setbacks. Right now, he hit the ball okay in the minors, but let's be clear, he had 40 batted ball events in the minor leagues. His hard hit rate was only 27.5%. Right? The bat speed, we've only seen 3 swings so far, so it's like basically not a sample, but none of them have been hard swings, right? So I'm really concerned about Jackson Holliday. He's not a must roster if you already have a second baseman, which isn't most of us, but like he's an okay flyer, but I said it in the notes in the hitter list, I'm concerned about guys who have helmet bone issues, right? Just an injury, fine, but setbacks, that's when you see dudes lose like whole years. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying like when we see it happen, it's from guys who had setups like Holliday.
Well, on that uplifting note for Orioles fans, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk Scott's top 150 hitters list after this. Welcome back to Hacks and Jacks. We're talking hitters on Pitcher List. I'm your host, Brett Ford, joined as always by Scott Chu. Scott puts together the top 150 hitters list every week for Pitcher List. Is it behind the paywall, Scott, or no? It's not. No. Scott puts together the top 150 hitters list every week on Pitcher's List. Good grief, Brett. Put it together. Scott puts together the top 150 hitters list on Pitcher List every week. So we're here to talk his most interesting hitters across the MLB. Scott, hit me with maybe a couple of the names that have either popped up in your Reddit AMA or have really piqued your interest this week, whether they're risers or fallers.
Yeah, for like all 6 of you that follow me on the website formerly known as Twitter, a guy who's come up a lot is Manny Machado. You drafted Manny Machado because you wanted him to just be this like locked in everyday third baseman. I don't have to worry about him at all. And I knew in my heart of hearts that like, yes, he's off to a bad start. Don't get me wrong. But I was like, man, I feel like we have danced this dance many times, right? Like I feel like I always talk about Manny Machado being in a slump and I don't really know what to do about it. So let me, for those of you that follow me on Twitter, like, I'm sorry, like all 3 of you. But since the start of 2023, Manny Machado has had 2 consecutive subpar months during the season each year. In 2023, it was the beginning of the season through May. He had a 654 OPS. In the beginning of the season to the end of May in 2024, he had a 617 OPS. From August through September of 2025, he had a 629 OPS. He has a low 600s OPS as of right now. I'm not giving you an exact number because by the time you hear it, it's going to change slightly because we'll have a couple of bats. But his OPS for the rest of the season in each of those years was somewhere between 833 and 879. If you don't know what kind of context to put that in, I'll tell you that roughly at the end of the season, someone ranked like an 879 to 833 OPS will rank somewhere between number 10 and 30 on the season for OPS. It's a really, really good OPS. It's a Manny Machado-esque OPS. So basically, if you want to quit on him, maybe don't. because other than these 2 bad months that he seems to have every single season, this extended slump, he's great, right? He's really, really good. And so I'm willing to go with track record and say, yeah, look, sometimes this guy's slow. In fact, in 2 of the last 3 years before this season, he was slow coming out of the gate. But then the rest of the way, he's the Manny Machado you know and love. So Manny Machado doesn't, you would think he falls a little bit in these ranks, but not very much. And the reason why is because I do believe that turnaround is going to come. And eventually he'll probably be back in the top 50. In fact, I may move him back into the top 50 here. I haven't finalized these ranks yet. These ranks will come out on Thursday, around maybe a little after the time this article publishes, but we're recording on Wednesday night. So Manny Machado will still be in the top 50. And that is why. It's because these kinds of slumps are sort of par for the course for him. Right. So don't get too worried about that. Another guy who moves down a bit is Ozzie Albies. So he can't move down that far because second base stinks, right? But like Ozzie Albies has always been this chronic, like StatCast overperformer, but then he goes on these horrible slumps, and he's in one of them right now. He falls down a little bit because I just don't know what he is for a full season, right? It's been a little while since we've seen all-star, high-end Ozzie Albies. Right. And the longer we go without seeing that, the more I think of like, maybe these are just hot streaks and the median guy is just like a back end second baseman. So he falls, he's still in the top 75, but just holding on by a thread. A guy who is going to move into the top 75 that wasn't there before, that's Miguel Vargas. Now, normally a guy like Vargas, I kind of like poo-poo on. I'm like, oh, well, whatever. Miguel Vargas, we've seen him be hot before. I don't really care. Miguel Vargas, though, is like legit. He's always walked a lot. He's walking even more now, but he's also swinging the bat a lot harder. I think the guy who's like more famous right now for swinging the bat harder is JJ Bleday, right? This is a guy who's all like JJ Bleday has always been a really patient hitter. He got kind of kicked out of, Miami. They sent him over to the artist formerly known as Oakland. He's with the A's for a bit. He has an okay season and then a bad one. They're like, all right, we'll get rid of you. He lands with the Reds. He's swinging JJ Bleday swinging the bat like 3-4 miles an hour harder than he's ever done before. It's one thing to do that for a week or two, right? I don't really care about that so much. It's sort of like a pitcher's velocity spikes for like 2 weeks or 3 starts, and then it goes back down. You're like, all right, whatever. JJ Bleday still swinging the bat extra hard. And that's what gets us to believe like, okay, this power isn't coming from nowhere. It's not like he's just sort of accidentally doing this. He's literally swinging the bat harder. That's why we're seeing more power. That's what we're seeing with Miguel Vargas. Except normally you would kind of expect a guy who's like swinging harder to also like struggle a bit more with contact. Now with Bleday, he was actually like kind of okay at that. Like he was patient enough that he could sort of just like give up some of this contact and it's no big deal. Miguel Vargas hasn't given up any contact ability. In fact, it's improved outside the zone, which he already never swings. He's in fact more patient, but he's swinging harder and whiffing less. That's a big deal. So Vargas, he's kind of dealing with a little bit of an injury, but his x-rays came back negative. He's moving up my ranks here. Last year, he set a career high in home runs with 16 in his first full season. Miguel Vargas right now kind of looks like a 25, 26 home run guy who, look, his batting average is still going to stink because like, that's just kind of what he is, right? He hits a ton of fly balls, and fly balls that don't leave the yard are outs. I talk about this all the time. But when you're a fly ball hitter like him and Bleday, and you're hitting the ball just a little bit harder, that means more of those fly balls have a chance to leave the yard. Yet it doesn't raise your batting average so much, but it does raise your home runs, which then impacts your counting stats directly. It impacts a lot of things. So seeing Miguel Vargas hit the ball harder and still keeping his fly ball profile, still keeping his plus plate discipline, if he continues to do this for another 2 or 3 weeks, it wouldn't be that weird to see him in the top 50. And I never thought I'd be saying that, but like when you're swinging that much harder and not giving up anything else, that's a big deal. That's a real change that projections are never going to account for. No projection's ever going to be like, I bet this dude's going to swing 3 miles an hour harder. Right? Like it's also one of the reasons that even when he starts getting hot, we'll call him a streamer. Cause we're like, look, I don't know if any of this stuff is going to stick around. There's a dude hitting, like swinging the bat harder for 2 weeks just isn't that meaningful, right? We see guys go up and down throughout the season, swing fast swing rates and average bat speed, that goes up and down throughout the season. It's a rolling chart like any other. So for like a week, 2 weeks, you're like, yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess he's doing it now, but maybe it slows down and it no longer matters, right? When you do it for this long, we start being like, okay, this might be something, right? If some dude's walk rate spikes for 2 weeks, I'm like, okay, that's cool. I don't know what to make of that. Let's see where it is in 2 more weeks. Now you have to act before we get the rest of the data. You have to act on JJ Bleday. You have to act on Miguel Vargas before I can tell you for sure this is who they are now, right? And I know it's frustrating when people ask me in the Reddit AMA or wherever, in our Discord, they're like, is this for real? And I'm usually like, I don't know, but this one's worth looking at, right? Give it a shot, give it a whirl, because streamer is not a bad word. Streamer is not a derogatory term. It just means that like, there's nothing I can tell you conclusively that this is a thing, right? I can tell you that most of these guys have done it before for a week or two. And if you stream them, it's to see if they do it for longer than that, right? I can tell you it's not totally smoke and mirrors, right? Like Zach Gelof is a streamer, right? One that I don't have a ton of confidence in because he still misses the ball in the zone all the time. His zone contact rate's like 77%, 76%. It's like Rafael Devers bad, but without Devers power and with a weird softball-like flat swing and all these other, and this horrible track record for Gelof outside of his rookie season, right? So it's like, yeah, it's a streamer to see if there's anything there, but I kind of don't think there is, right? But still a streamer because maybe I'm missing something, right? Maybe there's something I can't see. Maybe there's something that's changed. It's just not available in the data. So I'll tell you, go ahead and stream him. But like Gelof isn't going to be ranked because he might be, but it'll be in like the last 5 spots to tell you like, yeah, go ahead and stream it if you feel like it. I'm not going to stop you, but like, I'd much rather have a lot of other potential streamer names, right? Miguel Vargas and JJ Bleday are 2 guys that might be different. There's like a legitimate it's one thing to swing the bat 1 or 2 miles per hour harder, right? How much do you care about a pitcher that adds 1 or 2 miles of velo for a little while? Meh. Like, yeah, cool, I guess, right? I hope he doesn't blow his elbow out, right? When you start adding 3 miles per hour and more, that's when you're like, whoa, this is a thing. This is something that I'm paying attention to. So Vargas, Bleday, they both move up, and that's why. That's the thing I'm after, right? Another guy moving up, Jakob Marsee. So Marsee's a guy who everyone's been asking me if they could cut. I think in the last couple of weeks, I said, sure, not for nothing, but go ahead, right? Like if you wanted to add JJ Bleday, I was quick. I was like, yeah, go ahead. Now, what Marsee has is speed and patience, right? I think the batting average for Marsee is it's certainly not going to be the 292 it was last year. It's probably going to be something like what we saw in the minors for Marsee, which ain't great, right? I'll admit, last year in the minors, Jakob Marsee hit 246. Fine. Here's what Marsee can do is he can steal 40 bags on a team that loves stealing bags, right? They'll continue to bat him. So like right now he's batting 6th. He's sitting against some lefties. I don't care, right? This is still a guy who's a top 100 bat on the season as of right now because he has 13 stolen bases. In his last 100 and something games, he has 30 stolen bases, right? This is a dude that can easily steal 40 in a season, maybe even 50 if the Marlins feel like being aggressive. And in an OBP league, he can do it with a decent OBP. His OBP right now is 338. It could probably get as high as like 340, 350. If he just hit, he gets a little bit better BABIP, which he should. He's really fast. So Jakob Marsee, a guy moving up because he keeps getting chances, and I think he could really be something. I think the guy who maybe moves up the most in these ranks, though, is Carson Benge, or is it Benji? I apologize, but Carson over for the Mets. Why does he move up? Yes, part of it is because of the hot performance, right? Like hitting the ball well, that'll get you moving up the ranks. But there's one thing that moves you up even more than that, and that's for a little over a week now. He's the leadoff hitter for the Mets. Right. And this is a guy with a limited overall skill set. I still don't think Benge is a guy who's going to hit 15 home runs is at the very top of his limit. Right. He's got a very, very short minor league track record. But last year in the minors, he hit 15 home runs across all the way from high. Like if you add up all of his home runs from high A to triple A, he hits 15 of them in 116 games. steals 22 bases. Translate that to the minors. That's a guy who's maybe like 15-15, right? That on its own. So that guy batting ninth, you're like, okay, right? Like maybe, and like the batting average is variable and you're like, there's not a ton there to love, right? It's a back end outfielder as a number 9 guy because you lose at bats every game. Like you're missing out on several at bats a game. There's some math that's done basically about like what the difference between batting first and batting ninth. And it's like 100 something plate appearances a year, right? That's a huge, like that's like 20% of a guy's value sometimes just from going from first to ninth, right? It's a big deal because it's a lot of plate appearances. Also, you have a slightly lower chance of getting a run scored. You have a slightly lower chance of all these other things because you're just not at the plate as much. Carson Benge moves to the leadoff spot. That gives him as many as bats as he can. And he's a guy who does put the ball in play a fair amount, right? He strikes out less than 20%. That's what he did in the minors. That's what he's doing in the majors. You get the absolute most bang for your buck out of Carson Benge and that 265 average, which is fine, maybe even a little high for what to expect from him going forward. It's a guy who doesn't necessarily hit the ball all that hard. He doesn't barrel it up all that much. He's neither been lucky nor unlucky, but he's leading off. He's leading off and he's hitting in front of Juan Soto, right? Like right out of the gate, he's got a hot, all of a sudden hot hitting Bo Bichette. He's got a hot hitting Juan Soto. He's got a hot hitting Mark Vientos behind him. And he gets to bat leadoff. That's a huge deal. It's the perfect position for a guy like Benge who just doesn't have a ton of speed, doesn't have a ton of power. So what can you do? He can get counting stats. He can get those counting stats by being at the top of the lineup in front of really good hitters. So he moves up the most, and it's all about what's happening. Another guy who moves up quite a bit, Alec Bohm, right? He looked like he was being left for dead earlier on this season. He was off to a terribly slow start. Now he's like just ripping the cover off the ball, hit another home run today on Wednesday. He had that 2 home run game about a little over a week ago. I didn't care just about that game, but here's what happens after that game. The reason I didn't care is because Alec Bohm was still hitting 8th. Right? Alec Bohm's value has always been that he got to hit in the middle of this Phillies lineup. Well, guess where he's hitting today? 3rd. There's a huge difference for a guy with limited home run pop, but good bat skills, an ability to hit for average. You know where that's valuable? Batting freaking 3rd, right? He went from 8th to 5th to 4th to 3rd in the matter of about a week. It's like 8 games. He goes from the bottom to the heart of the lineup. That makes Bohm much, much, much more valuable. So he moves up, not because I think this is some permanent change. He's going to be a great hitter for the rest of the year, but because the dude's batting 3rd for the Phillies and the Phillies offense ain't too bad, right? Especially the top of it. He's going to get to bat right behind Turner, Schwarber, Harper, right? He gets to hit in front of a guy who's hit fairly well this year, which is Brandon Marsh, right? He's slowed down a little bit, but he can hit. But again, RBI are going to be there for Alec Bohm because now instead of batting 8th, behind like Marsh and Adolis Garcia and Bryson Stott and JT Realmuto, now he bats 3rd behind Turner, Schwarber, Harper. That's where the RBI are in. That's why he gets to move up the list. So he's a big mover there, and you really like that. I think the guys that are falling that I'm really having a hard time with, number 1, Tyler Soderstrom. So first base corner guy with like a pretty standard profile. Now he's shown us really good things in the past in that he has hit a bunch of home runs, but we've got a couple problems now. Number 1 being that he looks like he's in a platoon. Soderstrom's stat against at least the last 2 lefties. I think it's actually a couple more than that. His plate discipline's okay. It's not great, but this was not a super special profile to begin with, right? Like, yes, last season he hits 276 in his, quote unquote breakout year, like 25 home runs, 93 RBI. That's cool. But those RBI aren't going to happen like that if you're hitting in a platoon, right? And you keep moving down the line. So he finally got knocked out of the 3rd spot. He's hit 5th the last 2 games. He may move down even further than that in an Athletics lineup that's extremely top heavy, right? With Langolier, like you really need to be as close to Langoliers and Kurtz as possible. If Soderstrom moves down anymore, he'll continue to fall down this list, right? You don't want to be batting behind Geloff and Jeff McNeil and all that garbage, right? So Soderstrom moves down. I think a couple injuries will get him back to the bottom of the list, but Spencer Torkelson, which just breaks my heart. I'm a huge Torque fan. He continues to make really, really good decisions. And when he hits the ball, he does it with a lot of power. But the contact ability is so bad now that Torque just can't be trusted. So I'm holding him where I can in OBP leagues, but in batting average leagues, he was never going to have a good batting average to begin with. It's probably too bad now to keep holding, especially in a position like first, where you've got other options and you can move them in. But yeah, so Torque and Soderstrom move down. They'll be towards the bottom of the ranks right now. Another guy who you may be wondering what to do with, you probably picked up Carlos Cortez, 2 or 3 weeks ago because StatCast told you everything was good. I mean, everything looked great. He had this really nice stretch where he had a bunch of hits. And then immediately after that, everything's kind of fallen off the wagon, right? The exit velocity is way, way down. The barrel rates are way, way down. The only reason that Carlos Cortez might stay on my radar is because now he's leading off after they lost Jacob Wilson, after all these other things have kind of been mixed around. He's leading off. So maybe Carlos Cortez is something, but like he still sits too much. He sat against a couple righties, even though he's a lefty. It's a bit concerning. So Carlos Cortez is definitely on the drop list if you need to. The only saving grace he's got right now is they're going to let him get some cracks at leading off. So that's a big deal. Another guy that moves into the list, a couple guys that weren't on the list before that are now out of Cleveland would be Angel Martinez and Kyle Manzardo. Manzardo has power upside. They often sit him against righties. They'll probably keep doing that, but he's pretty hot right now, and there is upside there. So if you need to scoop a first baseman because you've been relying on Soderstrom or Torque and you need something to kind of give you a spark, that's probably Kyle Manzardo right now. Angel Martinez is a second baseman. Look, dude, Martinez, we've seen him before. There was very little power there to be. We saw him for 139 games last season. He hit 224 with 11 home runs, 8 stolen bases, like kind of the epitome of incredibly boring. He's getting looks at the leadoff spot now with Stephen Kwan not having really a great year. He's got 9 home runs already. He hit 11 all of last year in 139 games. And Angel Martinez now has 9 already. This dude could get to like 20 home runs, 15 stolen bases, and a 250 average. Is that a great player? No, right? Is that maybe a disappointment to hear those numbers after the way he's been hitting the last few weeks? Maybe. But that's a very realistic projection to see him get to like, let's call it like somewhere between 18 and 22 home runs and like, 15, 17 stolen bases. Like that's a legit dude. Like that's a back end outfielder you can kind of plug in. And that's so much better than I thought Angel Martinez would ever be. I wish I could tell you like this specific thing that's happened. He's swinging the bat a little bit harder, but really not that much and really not enough for it to be a huge difference. As of right now, the only thing kind of like freezing me up a little is the main difference I see for him is his home run fly ball rate has almost tripled, right? It was 7.5% last year. This year it's 19.1%. That is a bit of a luck-based stat, right? In short spurts, you'll see it spike, but like 19.1% is way too high. Which is why I'm saying like, well, maybe he can like double his home run total from today over the next like 80 games, right? Like in, 46 games, 9 home runs, he actually hit a triple today on Wednesday, but he's got 9 home runs in 46 games. Maybe he hits 9 to 10 more the rest of the season over like 80 or 90 games. I think he could do that because that home run fly ball rate is going to come down. Like 10% is probably a bit more, 10 to 12% is probably more likely for a guy with his kind of power profile, which ain't a lot. He's never had raw power. He's always been a hit tool guy, bat to ball guy. So, and Angel Martinez definitely interesting. Like again, the home runs are going to slow down, but that still gets him to close to 20. Even if the home run rate kind of cuts in half from now to the end of the season, he could still get to close to 20 because he's just got that much time left. So he's a guy who's interesting. And then finally, the guy I think I kind of got to talk about after, we've seen Jacob Marsee kind of turn around. The question now is Kyle Stowers, who quite frankly, we saw Kyle Stowers be good, right? He was really, really hot for a good chunk of time last year. He actually has 2 of these stretches. So last year in the beginning of the season and in the sort of summer around the All-Star break, we see him be really hot. We see him hit 25 home runs in 117 games. He's got 1 so far in 28 games or 27 games, only hitting 216. the question about, so Stowers falls down my ranks, and that's because of one main thing I have to think about, which is maybe Stowers is just a streaky power hitter, right? Like, is Kyle Stowers different than Gavin Sheets, who right now is super, super hot and kind of doing the things we saw Stowers do last year, except we also have a longer track record for Sheets to be like, yeah, he's a lefty. He's a power hitting lefty guy, right? Gavin Sheets, Mickey Moniak, who's having a great season, but I'm telling you, Mickey Moniak is still just like this really streaky power hitter. We can see these guys get hot, and then we can see them get sent down, right? Those guys won't get sent down, but like they can be bad enough that you'd consider it, right? So with Kyle Stowers, now the question is like, is that what he is? Is he this streaky left-handed power bat now? So he'll move quite a ways down, because I'm starting to think that's the reality. Finally, one guy that you do need to start resetting your expectations for, and that, you know, in our sort of podcast chat before the show, I was talking to Josh Sperry about, I'm going to give you a comp for Fernando Tatis Jr., and you may not love it. You'll love it if you think of it as the 2026 version of this guy, because he's been good. But like, if you just look at the last 200 or so games from Fernando Tatis Jr., he looks like 2024 and 2025 CJ Abrams, which is a guy who hits like 250, can maybe hit close to 20 home runs and steal like 30 bags. But again, only hits 250, gets like 90 runs and 50 RBI because he's just not doing enough. That's not what you drafted. That's not a player you drop, right? CJ Abrams was too good to drop in each of those 2 seasons. You can't drop him. But if you're trying to like buy low on Fernando Tatis Jr., I don't think you can call it a buy low if you're giving up someone better than like a top 40 to 70 bat kind of thing, depending on what kind of bat it is, like what they do, like the difference. I wish I could give you just like a set number, but like if it's a 40 guy who like kind of does some stuff you don't really need, that's fine. If it's a 70 guy, but he's got a lot of upside, that's fine. Like somewhere in that range, like that's what if I'm making a deal for Fernando Tatis Jr., it's like, I'll give you a top 50-ish bat for him, right? I'm not doing the top 25 at all. I'm not doing the top 30. I'm not doing the top 40, because Fernando Tatis Jr. just might be, at this point, CJ Abrams. Now, is there upside for better? Sure. We saw better last year, right? We also saw long power droughts, and out of nowhere, he hit 7 home runs last September. And that's what really got us like, yeah, we're back. Okay. He's fine now. He's fine. He got over whatever that thing was, but now he ain't over it. He still had 0 home runs. Maybe by the time this airs, he's got 1, maybe even 2. Maybe he has an amazing game. He has 2, but that's it. Right. And so we have to start recalibrating what we came into the season expecting a certain outcome, which is like 25 to 30 home runs, 25 to 30 steals, and a good batting average. And now it's like, okay, the home runs aren't there. So now it's 15 to 20 home runs. And yeah, he's still stealing bases though. And the batting average isn't so good, but at least that's something. Like, it's better. So if you're wondering, what do I do? Well, you obviously can't cut him. Not just because you spent the draft capital, but because I think he still projects to be like a 2024 to 2025 CJ Abrams, right? That's fine. That's a guy you can keep. It just means like now you've got a power need that you need to go and address out in the trade market or on the waiver wire or something. You take some shots, you need to get more power. And so like that's kind of an adjustment you have to make. I think the other guy you need to make an adjustment on, who hit 31 home runs last year, is Pete Crow Armstrong, right? Pete Crow Armstrong right now, he's at 5 home runs through 50 games. He's playing his 50th game right now. He's got 2 strikeouts. I think with PCA, we might be looking at something better than the 2024 version, but the power from the 2025 version just ain't there. He's not barreling the ball that much. Like his expected batting stuff, his exit velocity, his launch angles, his barrel rates, everything that looks like the 2024 guy, right? And for Pete Crow Armstrong, what that means is probably something like, there's maybe a little bit more power there, but for Pete Crow Armstrong, I'm going to throw out numbers that are a lot like what I just said for Fernando Tatis Jr., right? It's going to be something like 20 home runs, like 30 to 40 stolen bases. And what you're hoping for is a 250 average, right? Again, that's a top 50-ish player, which again is way too good to cut in every format. In an 8-team league, you can't cut a top 50 player, right? But instead of the potential of this being a top 15 to 20 player, it's a top 50, right? And again, the adjustment you have to make, if you for some reason you've got Pete Crow Armstrong and you have Fernando Tatis Jr., here's where you're at. You've got a worse batting average. If these guys are what I think they are, you've got a worse batting average. You'll have to handle that. You've got all the stolen bases you could want and more. You're getting all of that still, right? You're getting a lot of the counting stats, but not all of them. Where are you really hurting? You're really hurting in home runs and RBI. That's where you need to start making some trades. So you need to start attacking home run and RBI. If you've got Fernando Tatis Jr. and Pete Crow Armstrong, I think you have to start doing it now. Go ahead and sell. Don't sell for less than a top 50 player, because I think you've got that. You've already got a top 50 player, but maybe go for a top 50 player who does things slightly different than what you've got. Right? You can't trade them for CJ Abrams, because I don't think that's going to work. And you don't really want to trade them for an O'Neal Cruz, because there's a lot of volatility there. And if he goes bad, guess what he does? He steals bases with bad batting average and low RBI. But do I hate a move for Pete Crow Armstrong for Brent Rooker? No, I think I like that, because you can start, if you are short on the power and you don't care about the speed, that's the kind of move you can make. Right? Or Ketel Marte, I think he could turn it around. Right? I think that's kind of a decent look. You want to take another gamble? Maybe Gunnar Henderson, because I think Gunnar Henderson will have some power, maybe more than those guys, but he's another one where I don't really know what to do with him yet. But Manny Machado is not a terrible move, right? If you could flip, if you don't need the steals from Fernando Tatis Jr. or from Pete Crow Armstrong, you're no, I need the ratio, or I need the RBI and I need the home runs. I don't need these steals. I took those guys because I wanted the RBI and home runs. One of those guys for Manny Machado, I think, would be a very interesting offer the other person would strongly consider, especially if they need the speed. I'm trying to it's kind of hard, because I'm trying to tell you these guys, I don't know what they could be. Yes, they still have upside, but I don't know what to do with them. I'm trying to give you some actionable things here, but they're risky, right? You're going to have to take risks if you want to try to get value back from these two guys who just aren't performing well. As much as we love to say we love to buy low, people don't like buying low. They hate it, actually. People really like buying high, hoping that it goes even higher, right? When does everybody buy Bitcoin? When it's going up, right? That's how it works. As humans, we are just really bad at buying low, because when things are moving down, we think they're going to keep moving down. When things are going up, we think they're going to keep going up, because we like patterns, right? We're simple creatures. So I think if you're going to try to move those guys, look for another top guy who's slumping, right? Who's off to a slow start, right? I think I'd rather have Pete Alonso than Tatis or Pete Crow Armstrong right now if I don't need that speed, right? I think those are good moves. I think Brent Rooker's right in that area. I think Ketel Marte's right in that area. Those are guys who are slumping that will give you the power and RBI you might have hoped you'd get in place of the stolen bases, which, frankly, you can probably get another way cheaper, right? So those are the kinds of moves I'd make. I think I'm not super interested in Pete Crow Armstrong or Fernando Tatis Jr. for a slumping guy who's maybe further down the list, or a catcher or something like that, right? Shoot a little higher than that, but that's what you're after. You're trying to probably replace home run and RBI you thought you weren't going to get. I'd rather be chasing steals on the wire or something. Home run and RBI are hard to get on the wire, because those guys usually hit third and fourth and are rostered. So that's my little spiel on these guys that you're probably making tough decisions on. You can't cut them. I do think you have to trade them, and I think you should be targeting power and RBI.
I love that. Scott, take a breath, get a drink of water. You just crushed a marathon of content there, a whole bunch of actionable take on fantasy players that hopefully managers will take and put into action. I actually just fired off a trade of Tatis for Henderson straight up. I think that's fair value. And
gamble for a gamble.
I was going to say, and as an Orioles fan, I'm here for the Gunnar Henderson comeback. And if Tatis bounces back, well, is what it is. So I love what a lot of what you said there, and hoping to put it into practice.
I mean, at least Henderson's struggling, but at least he's got 10 home runs, right? In his last 200 games, Tatis has 12, right? Henderson's got 10 and 48, and you got to chase the power.
And it's a league in which I'm first out of 12 in stolen bases. So I can give up speed. I mean, Gunnar still has some. I think he's got like 8 stolen bases this year, but like I can give up the speed that Tatis offers and try to accumulate some power and counting stats in return. So we'll see how it goes.
I'd much rather chase something that I can use matchups for. You can use matchups to get stolen bases, right? If someone's going against like the Twins or the Rays, they're going to steal, right? That's just what they're going to do. You don't know, like home runs are much harder, right? Like maybe you're like, oh, well, they're going to Colorado, right? Or they're going to Cincinnati. That's it, right? There's a lot. It's a lot more predictable to chase steals because basically teams like to run on teams that are bad at defending it. Whereas home runs are like, I need a guy to miss a pitch, right? Even bad pitchers have their day. But teams that are bad at stopping stolen bases pretty much will let you steal, right? So if I'm going to stream for something, I'd rather it be steals, not home run and RBI. So 100%. I think that's a smart move. And hey, you're on a roll with trades already, right? You already got the great Josh Naylor. Like Josh Naylor, check. What's he been doing? Oh yeah, stealing a whole bunch of bases because he's the king of hustle and heart. And that's what he is.
He's up to 255 batting average so far this year. So like a huge comeback there also. Now, granted, it's a lot of singles, but hey, it's coming around.
Yeah, like last I checked, Josh Naylor has 12 stolen bases through 50 games. Guess what that's a pace for? That's 30. He's back. He's back for a pace for 30.
I love it. All right. So other than your burner account, at Josh Naylor Stan on Twitter, where can the people find you and your work?
At If the Chew Fits, I guess. If the CHU fits. I like the Josh Naylor one better. You can go to at If the Chew Fits. You'll see more Josh Naylor content because he's amazing and you should love him because he's the king of hustle and heart because he doesn't need speed to steal bases, right? He's still first, second percentile speed guy. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need it because he's got the hustle. He's got the flow. All right. That's what Josh Naylor is. I'll never stop saying if someone thinks they're selling high, they're wrong. They're wrong. Go get him. This is a top 30 hitter. He's always has been. And you got to trade Cam Smith for him, Brett.
I did.
How do you feel? Everybody else is cutting Cam Smith, which, you kind of have to do because he hasn't been great. I still think there's some upside there, but it's Josh Naylor all day. No one would give you Josh Naylor today.
I feel really smart, and it's all thanks to you and the Hacks and Jacks podcast, Scott.
Yeah. Granted, I also said I'd trade Walker for him, and Walker has been better so far. Walker's the one doing the thing that I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if he's going to keep doing that, right? So both Cam Smith and Jordan Walker were like, oh, I don't know. They're both good streamers, but Jordan Walker's done this before. He didn't keep it up. And then he bounced back from his slump way quicker than he'd ever done before. And that makes him look a lot more appealing. But like, even then, did you lose? Did you lose? Yeah, you traded risk for a much more stable asset. You do lose the trade as of today, but you got a good player back, right? Like, you're not going to lose your league because of the Walker for Naylor swap. By the end of the year, they may be ranked very close together just for doing different things, right? I still think that's a very real possibility. I think these guys are both potentially top 30 hitters, but Walker's all power, and I think the ratios come down a bit. He's not going to keep hitting 299. I think he's going to hit closer to like 260. And Naylor's going to steal 30 bags, and Walker will steal like he's got 7. Maybe he doubles that number by the end of the year. Anyway, the important point is you got a stable player and go ahead and make these trades. You guys, it's okay to lose trades. It's okay. Right? Like, just don't mortgage the whole future. Don't do a Ricky Williams trade, right? Where you trade everything for one dude, but you can make some trades and it's okay to lose some. It's okay to trade. Most of the time that you trade out risk to get stability, you win. Right? It's okay to lose sometimes. Right? And that's why I'm suggesting some of these trades that you're like, oh, I don't know, that's risky. Probably, but like if you're trailing in home runs and RBI, you've got to trade something good to get those things. Fernando Tatis Jr. and Pete Crow Armstrong can be that good. Right? They can be those things. And yes, maybe they go off and be the guy we kind of hope they would be for the whole rest of the year. And it doesn't work out for you. Maybe. Right. But it kind of doesn't look like that's going to be the thing. And you need to take action now. If you've already got the stolen bases, you're feeling good about those. You need the home run and RBI. You got to trade something people want. right? You can't just offer them, back of the roster guys and get home runs and RBI. It ain't going to work, right? You could scour the wire, but there's only a couple guys that are going to come out and really give you that. Now we'll talk about guys who can give you one of those things, right? Alec Bohm can give you one of those things, right? We'll talk about guys who can give you speed. They can give you just speed. They can give you maybe just RBI because they're going to hit third. Maybe they give you just home runs, but like only for a little while. If you want someone who's going to give you both, you got to trade something good. So go do it.
Anytime someone drops a 1999 NFL draft reference, I absolutely love it. Thank you, Scott. As always, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in to Hacks and Jacks. You can find me on Twitter, social media, everywhere at Fade That Man. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Later.